Hello, my friends, and welcome to Brand Your Dream Show. Today, we're talking with amazing guest, Jennie Eriksen, and she's amazing voiceover artist and the co-founder of Event Raptor Community. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you so much, Eve. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm so excited to discuss with you your community because it's amazing community for speakers, for people who want to connect with podcasters, with shows. I'm a member of this community. I'm so grateful for that. But I want to hear from you. What are you doing? What do you think is really, really important in your business? And I would like to hear your story.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Okay. Well, yes, indeed. I am co-founder of Event Raptor. My husband is the other co-founder and actually the creator. So we are a husband and wife team of 30 years, but we started Event Raptor a couple of years ago. Actually, when we had a bit of our global interrupt, we wanted to run our own events. And we've both been in the virtual world for well over a decade. Voiceover is very much an opportunity to connect with people worldwide that you never actually meet. And I've had the privilege of narrating for over 60 countries, and being in the virtual world when we had a bit of a global interrupt and people had to move online. So many people were looking for different opportunities to be able to continue what they did, but also perhaps didn't have the realization that what they did actually could impact people, all over the world. We're so lucky that we can press a button and connect with people worldwide. And so wanting to run our own events, we looked for something on the market that would if you like, reduce the lead time in all those moving parts, which I always call herding kittens, things like speaker bios and landing pages and all that kind of thing. And we couldn't find something on the market that was affordable and that did actually what we needed it to do. And in our house, we lovingly call my husband Mr. Automation. If he can automate something, then he will. And so by running our own events, he automated and created different things to make everything more cohesive and easier to manage. And we had two events quite quickly together. We had an event with 27 speakers over 3 days and 37 speakers over 5. And at the end of the second event, people was, they'd love the events, but people were saying, this was so easy. I knew, for example, when Eve was speaking, or the landing page was super easy to organize. Everything just seemed very easy, the links for everything. How did you do that? It was just so simple. And that was the system that Steve had created for us. And people were literally saying, well, cracky, if that was available, I would buy it. So we deviated, if you like, from what we were doing and worked on creating something that other people could use. And at the beginning, we didn't have something that was a viable product for people to use. So we gave people the opportunity to take advantage of a lifetime deal and to support us in our quest to get it out there as quickly as possible, with a view to it being a monthly subscription as soon as possible. And that's indeed what we did. We plowed everything into developing the system. There's still loads of stuff that we're going to be developing 2023 and beyond. But essentially, we've got a system that people can use right from nothing. You can use a meeting link and it's not going to cost you anything, all the way through to us being involved at the other end if you need us to help you run your virtual event, with what I call bells and whistles and cherries on top. So we created something that we felt was affordable and easy for people to use. And in fact, one of our very first clients, one of Steve's very first clients, was a lady in her 70s who wanted to run her own events, and she wanted to do it herself. And she said, I want to do it myself, even though you could help me. But these are the things that I find are challenging. Often people find tech is challenging. So Steve walked through with her things that she would find challenging, because they were probably things other people would find challenging too. So she very much helped us create something that we feel is user-friendly, easy to navigate, and also at a price point that people can use, and ease of simplicity of being able to reach out to a global community.
It's absolutely fantastic. I love your system because actually it is easy to use, because I looked at some summits which you created, like a viewer. It was actually easy. And also I'm a part of community in the list as a speaker. So again, it's easy to use as a speaker. And as well, you have this amazing community which is gathering any second Tuesday, I guess. And it's really, really lovely, really, really friendly. And I think because I've been in many networking communication, some of them friendly, some of them not so much. I really love the vibe of your community. So people become friends, I think, super quickly. But then they follow up and, connect, because I already get several amazing guests from your community, and it's really not complex, but not only from tech perspective, from emotional perspective. And speaking about visibility for businesses, especially those who try to move towards speaking career, the book writer or course creators, because for them it's important to practice their speaking skills. So what do you think visibility is? What is the importance of visibility for business? Let's say it's understandable for those who already realize that they have to be on camera. But do you think it can be important for other types of businesses? Is it worth an effort to show up, to give this power to reach more communities with video or maybe with summits?
It's quite interesting. I've often heard people say, I am the best kept secret. And nobody should really be the best kept secret. What we do, we have an impact to connect with people all over the world and share what we do, whether that's our courses, whether that's our teaching, whatever that may be. And if you have an opportunity to be able to do that, then why wouldn't you? So, for example, for me, having been years in networking and help people with their messaging and how to connect with people, it starts with showing up to a networking meeting and finding a sense of belonging. And as you say, we've very much tried to create a community where people feel welcome and a sense of belonging. So starting off, what does that message look like at a networking meeting? If somebody says, you can speak for a minute and talk about what it is you do, then what does it look like if you were to go to a networking meeting and somebody says, we have a 10-minute slot, could you talk about what you do? Then how do you then extend that to an even bigger slot, so that then becomes a talk? So whether that's a talk that informs people about things, or whether that's a talk that tells people what you do and helps people understand how they can work with you, then it's great that people can take the opportunity. And watching people go from that, that those few seconds at the networking meeting where the minute feels the longest, that it's the longest minute ever, right through to watching people then create talks, is just amazing. And the fact of the matter is, even though we can now meet in person, and so we should, we're wired for connection in person, but we're also have an enormous privilege to be able to connect online. So what we talk about isn't just UK, US centric. So many people talk about things that will resonate with the global audience. So if you have the opportunity to reach out and touch people in a global community and share what it is you do, and meet other people that are a good fit for you to maybe work with or collaborate with or can be part of what you do, I just think it's an enormous privilege.
Absolutely. What I love about the community is that anytime we meet, there is a little bit of instructions, like how to introduce yourself, what to say, how to say. So it's actually make it very comfortable because you know what to say. At least you have a framework. So you probably have your own introduction, but if you follow the simple steps, it can help you to understand that there is a system behind. You could just follow the simple steps. You can introduce yourself. Nobody will judge you for that. It will be just perfect introduction for this specific community. And I love this little bit supportive touch, which I think people just take as granted, but it's actually very thoughtful. So well done, really.
Thank you. It's something that we wanted to do because we wanted people to know from the get-go what our Speaker Connections networking meeting is all about, because we want people to get the very best from the meeting, not, oh my goodness, I went and I didn't know what was happening and I didn't know what to expect and it was all a blur. And we actually found so many people came back with feedback saying, I love the fact that you do that. And also it's a repetitive thing and it's an intentional thing, because then people know what to expect. And it reminds people once again what to expect, because all networking meetings, for example, are different. You're expected to do different things, and for ours we really just want people to be able to play full out and to understand what they can do, and any little nudges and tips that we can give people to hone and shape and refine what they do to get that engagement with the people that they meet. And that was the real, the reason for doing it. So
I have another question, and we will slowly move towards authenticity with this question, because I noticed when we have this little breakout rooms with 4 or 6 people or something
mhm.
like that, and I noticed it in specifically networking for speakers, which was quite weird notice. Basically, when people out of instruction or they stop introducing themselves, let's say take not 2 minutes but one, then there is an awkward silence and nobody speak at all.
Mm.
It's like speakers have no idea how to communicate to each other, like the worst communicators ever. And that bring up the idea of authenticity. So how do you think how much we should share as speakers? Because when we speak, especially we present some speeches on stages or something like that, we have very refined speech and it forms some idea about what we speak, how we speak. And then when we out of words, it's like silence. I
Mm.
don't know what to talk about. I have no idea who am I. So how do you think people can be more authentic, more conversational, or should they be more conversational in the speaker community? Tell me more about that.
We found we are running an event called Own Your Stage in the next couple of months, and we ran it twice last year. And we very much talk about the specificity of what it is you do, how that you get to be known to be that person that talks about or does that particular thing. And with the first Own Your Stage that we ran, we always say to people at summits that we run, we would love for you to impart a nugget of wisdom or something that the attendees or the audience can implement immediately, so that they can go away from listening to your session and put something into practice immediately. And something we found with our event was so many people, which is a good thing to do, I hasten to add, started with their hero's journey. So you're looking at the bio of a speaker and you think, oh my gosh, that's impressive because they've done this, they've done a TEDx talk, they've got a 6-figure business, whatever it may be. But one after the other, so many speakers were starting with their hero's journey, and I love watching people's micro expressions and how an audience reacts to things. And by watching people tell their stories, I could see how many people were really leaning in and listening, which was fascinating, because it sort of bursts the bubble, because we think, oh, well, they're just going to tell us what to do, and you've got to do this, you've got to do that. But that event became very, very inclusive, because it dispelled the myth that these were just, super shiny people. Some of them had talked about, how, being a single mum and having to start again, or, how they tried and failed and tried and failed and tried again. And it was very, very inspirational. And I think that when people share part of their story, it really draws in an audience. It becomes very personable. And we could see from the chat that so many people were asking questions, and the speakers were saying, gosh, I can see a question there, may I address that? And it became almost like, as you might say, like a fireside event. So rather than people being spoken to, they were being spoken with. And I think sharing that part of the story just made people lean in and want to ask. And then the authenticity coming back from the speaker, even though they had what they were speaking about, but the Q&A afterwards were completely maxed out, because people had so much they wanted to ask. And indeed, after the event, so many speakers said, gosh, your community are reaching out, where are you next speaking? What is it like to work with you? How can I connect with you and continue the conversation? And I think when you share part of your story, it just becomes that much more relatable to people. So to be able to have those little nuggets that you can talk to people about, how you shaped your story. We really are, as human beings, we're wired for stories. So yeah.
So speaking about that, you told me you have very personal and very important story about yourself. I would like to hear this story.
Yeah, well, thank you. So yes, I mean, we're talking about visibility. That's something that's that Event Raptor is all about. But actually, it was something that I struggled with for quite a few years because I had way back in the early well 16 years ago now, actually, I had something called a hemifacial spasm. So I actually lost the use of half of my face. Well, I didn't lose the use. My face basically went into overdrive. It's a neurological problem that basically means your face starts to contort and doesn't do things you want it to do. And all those lovely things that we take for granted, like eating and kissing and laughing and all those wonderful things that we do with our face, and we hope our face is going to behave. Mine just didn't. So literally for 10 years I became invisible, and as a voiceover, that's a perfect job for somebody that doesn't like looking at people, because you can sit in a small dark room talking to yourself and nobody sees you. And looking at things like family photos, if I am in a family photo, which is not, it's pretty rare, you'd only ever see half of my face hiding behind somebody. And I have to say, Eriksens are all tall. So, my son, my husband, my daughter are all tall, and they were super handy to hide behind, because I certainly didn't want to show my face. And there was literally no cure other than having brain surgery. That's the only real possibility of having a cure of this. And, having lived with it for 10 years, I got to the stage that even though there were, potential complications from surgery, I didn't want to go the rest of my life not being able to do the things that so many people take for granted. And we do this, we say to people, if we see somebody not looking very happy, oh, cheer up, love, it's never going to happen. Or smile using your teeth, or and even things like laughing, I would literally put my hands up to my face if I was laughing, because I didn't want people to see what it looked like. So actually 6 years ago, I had surgery. I had the opportunity to have surgery here in Norway. And, a lot of people have the surgery, and from the minute, they wake up, things are better. So many people in a support group I was part of going, it's great, I'm 100%, it's wonderful. But I wasn't. I was about, I don't know, 60% better when I woke up after surgery. And actually, I was really, really grateful for that. Really grateful that I had some change, that something different, some semblance of normality, if you want to call it. And I was content with that. But as it actually happened, as time went on, so I got better and better. And I guess you might say I'm about 95, 97% good, on days when I'm tired, or, a long time on Zoom, you might notice a little flicker or something. But I got to the stage where, I have had the opportunity now to be able to show up. But what happened was I actually didn't then know how to show up. It's almost like having to learn again. And if somebody says to you, you have to learn to smile again, it seems a really weird thing to say, because it's something we take for granted. We automatically think we can smile, but I didn't know how to smile without moving my face with my hands or propping my elbow under my arm. I didn't know how to. And as for using, showing my teeth in a smile, or, eating in public without my head down on my chest. So I had to almost learn all over again. And even now, even after this time, I had a learned behavior of putting my hand up to my face. So even now, if I laugh, if I belly laugh, I can feel my hand going up to want to protect myself. So I literally had to learn to be visible again, literally had to learn, what does it look like and how to feel confident doing so. And I hope that has helped me inspire other people to do that. When we say, well, I don't want to turn up because I look like this, or my house is like that, or whatever. I don't want to one up somebody and say, well, if I can do it, you can do it. But I know how it feels when people go, it doesn't feel good to me. So I hope I can help people along the way too.
Do you think this story and this pain and this personal gain of the visibility and ability to do this very regular things for other people, but realizing the value of the things which we take for granted, do you think that impacted the desire to open Event Raptor?
I think it certainly helped. How I would be, if I was still dealing with having a hemifacial spasm, I don't know. I think I would endeavor to have showed up, because this just seemed like an amazing opportunity to be able to help people connect. And, Steve and I are massive introverts. I'm just the noisy one. But, when I'm on, and I'm off. So I'm a situational extrovert. So after, our lovely interview today, I will decompress, cooking the dinner or walking the dog. So, it is still a big effort for us because we are introverted, and with the community that we have, we come very much from a gentler place. And we very much say to people, whatever community you can be part of, then do so. Choose where you want to hang out, be with us, be somewhere else, be with both. But it's important for us to be authentic and show up just as us. And a lot of people have said, we like that. It just feels a safe environment. It feels gentle, and I don't feel judged, and it's okay to just to show up as me. So that's great for us. But I'd like to think that I would have pushed through. But again, probably having to implement all my strategies of, pushing up my face and wearing my glasses and all that kind of thing. But yeah.
But I was thinking that because you get this new freedom after the surgery, basically to learn how to be yourself once again, I think this is a message which you're now sharing with Event Raptor, just show up, you can do it. And it's like, I just remember my story when I was going through this fear of camera, different reasons, imposter syndrome and stuff like that. But once you overcome this a little bit and you learn how to show up on video, now you're like, oh my God, I want to spread the message. I want to help others to feel the same, because it's about feeling, isn't it?
It is. And the momentum is everything. I'll give you a very quick story, if I may. A couple of years ago, I was speaking to a lady I met at a networking meeting, and she reached out to me. She was working with a coach who had challenged her to do Facebook Live, do a Facebook Live every day, get in front of your community. And this was a lady who, she didn't even have a picture on her website. And the idea of doing this was terrifying. And we had a conversation, and she was saying, oh, I feel terrible. And, I'm being told I'm not going to get the traction, the results, all the things if I don't show up. But I don't know how to. And, for me, the momentum is everything. And I said to her, it would be lovely to have a picture on your website of you, because she actually worked with dogs. Her work was dog therapy. So, helping dogs with the behavior, huge pet lover. And I said, maybe, with these things, our phones are absolutely wonderful. They take beautiful pictures. Maybe your husband, she was talking about her husband, could take a picture of you with a dog, not with you necessarily looking at the camera, posing, but just a picture of you giving a dog a belly rub, or just a picture of you walking one of, the dogs that you've been helping. Maybe you could do that. Maybe you could record yourself on your phone, and then you might delete it 10, 20, 30, 40 times. But maybe you might get 30 seconds where you do a piece to camera and you think, I could do something with that. The momentum is everything. We can't all just suddenly show up. Some of us can, and that's great. But if we can do a little something, and then a little something more, and then maybe that video that we've created, then we think, oh, I'm going to try and do that live. And for her, it could be anything like, here I am walking Sadie, the dog. Sadie's having a lovely time. We're out in the fresh air. Here's my top tip today. This is something great you can do with your dog. And it was interesting to see that after I've spoken to her, she did actually have a picture appear on her website, and she started doing things. It took her a little bit of time, but instead of it being this huge lofty goal that she had to deal with, the fact that I didn't give her permission, we just had a safe conversation, but the fact that she felt that there was permission just to start in little tiny increments and move up. And that's everything. It comes back to what I was saying before, that 1 minute message that you master at a networking meeting can become the 10-minute presentation, can become then your talk, your signature talk. We can move things up, and we can add the building blocks and add more and more to what it is we do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love the suggestions. I also like to suggest this to such people who listen to us, because that what you said is brilliant. It's like, really, you don't need to show up, and you don't need to show up in camera if you feel uncomfortable,
Mhm.
especially for the business, which is not necessarily consulting or any kind of business in person. So when she helped dogs, she can start like these 100 videos just by showing the dogs,
Mhm.
filming dogs, and speaking, behind. So it's like a very different technique, which help people eventually to show up on camera because they are familiar with technology, because there are so many technical aspects in that. And then eventually they show up. So it's like literally what you suggest is brilliant. Really, really to start with small, small, small things and then eventually move forward towards something more impactful, perhaps.
Mhm.
Sometimes really shorts or reels are very impactful nowadays. So, longer videos, not necessarily the most impactful one. So what are your best recommendations for our viewers?
My best recommendations for visibility is start with defining your message, what it is you talk about. So, for example, if I meet you in a queue in a coffee shop and we're standing behind somebody ordering 27 coffees, and we strike up a conversation and I ask what you do, how can you tell me in a very quick way what it is you do so that I understand easily? We often hide behind jargonisms and different terms. What is it that you do? Who is it that you serve? So when you think about things like networking meetings and communities, the idea is behind networking meetings are that we are actively listening to the people that we meet, and we are there to be good ambassadors for people. And if I don't understand what it is you do, you're just a nice person I meet in a breakout room. And what a shame when people turn up and their message doesn't land. And you can see, even though people say, oh, it's not the same being online as it is in person. Oh, gosh, it is. Look at people's micro expressions and see where people are disinterested and they're heading off into the distance, or they're pretending they're writing, but they're probably on their phone texting. Oh my gosh, this is just a boring person I'm meeting in a breakout room, and smiling at the same time. How do you succinctly tell people what you do? How do you how do you tell people what it is you do with authority so they know who it is you best serve? And we use this at Speaker Connections. If I say, as an example, if you're a parent coach, what kind of parent coach are you? Because children are from babies right to the other end. Do you help parents of newborn babies? Do you help parents of teens who are challenged in some way? Do you help parents who are dealing with divorce or challenging illness? What is it that you do? Who is it that you really help? So that's how I would ask people to start in terms of a networking meeting. Then how do you expand on that? How do you talk with authority about what you do? What is the wisdom that you can impart to people? What are the takeaways that you can give people? So people go, that's the person. That's the person they're the expert about that. You have to speak and connect with them. You need a speaker for your event. I just heard this person talk about this. So there is absolutely no ambiguity. They are the person that speaks about that thing. And when we introduce different things, we confuse people. We're expecting people to be an ambassador for us. But if we say we do one thing, but I also do this and this and this and this, invariably they don't know how to recommend you or to speak about you, so they don't. And so be known for that thing so that people can be a good ambassador for you and tell other people about what it is you do.
Fantastic. Interestingly, I think that people really need to master also this idea of how to present quickly and slightly longer, slightly funnier. Once they master this idea, like, who they really are. I face the situation many times, like even in your community, when they say, like, introduce yourself in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I always do it in 1 minute or something like that. So I'm like, oh, I have to be aware of time. Or
Mm-hmm.
like 27 coffees in a queue. If you will, introduce yourself in 1 minute, then probably you will have nothing to talk about, which is interesting touch on this. Definitely many people have no idea how to present themselves interestingly, this is very much related to experts with long time of expertise in offline business,
Mm.
like, from institutional background, who actually were professors, or, they have this long time of being accepted by community. They never had this need to present or pitch or something like that. And when they get to the situation when they have their own business, they're clueless
Yeah.
how to present themselves. So my question to you, and I know that you work with many different types of people, like from very
Mm.
young people to much, much older. What do you think is the best tactic for introduction for people like that, for experts who know the subject very, very well, and they often say, I help people like of this planet, to do this and 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 this.
Yeah.
And it's like a long list of this and this and this. And I heard it so many times. I guess you also heard that. So
Yeah.
what is your best recommendation for this type of people? The true experts who actually know the subject but have no idea how to say hello.
Well, going back to what you were saying earlier, with things like networking meetings, if you're only getting a minute to speak, if you only have a minute opportunity, as a voiceover, I can tell you that that is 150 words. So if you were to write something down, and you can write something down and then tweak it and then learn it and play around with it. Often you'll get people, they'll turn up with, for anybody who's watching this, pages of stuff, and I'm going to tell you in a minute what it is I do. And when you say, well, gosh, that's only a tiny little snippet of, it's not very much to tell people what you do. How can you be succinct? So, I mean, who is your client? What is their problem? How do you help them solve it? What is the result? What's the time commitment? Maybe what's the monetary investment if you go further down the line? But who is it that you help? When we often have coaches that will say, I help people live their best lives. It doesn't actually mean anything. And because of technology, our attention spans are so much shorter than ever, that unless we hit somebody right between the eyes immediately, then we're going to lose them, or they will make assumptions about us. So it's really about being on point and crystal clear about who it is you help right out of the gate. And that's when you can then build a relationship or start a relationship with somebody to continue the conversation. You can't tell everybody, for example, in a minute what it is you do, but the message is to give people a snapshot, so they automatically think, gosh, I would like to know more about what it is you do. You've just given them some pointers and some tasters, but you'll often get people trying very hard to squeeze everything into a minute what it is they do. And that just becomes noise to the listener, and people can't take in what you're saying, because then you're saying it faster and faster and faster, and people are trying to keep up, and less is more. Less is actually more. But who it is you help and how you serve them and what problem you help them solve is super important for a continued conversation. And then if you get a bigger opportunity to speak, you can expand on that, how that happens, case studies. Or, for example, 2 top tips I give to people about networking are, when. So when people say, I don't know how to start talking about what it is I do, you can start with when, because if we start with when, I could be saying to you, when I went to the grocery store yesterday and I bought that thing. Or it could be saying, when people are struggling to such and such. It's a good way to start. It's very warm and personable. And or another way could be, picture this, because we're quite visual as people. Picture this, somebody is struggling with such and such, and this is how I help them. You can then be more playful with what you do.
Fantastic. I like this. Picture this, because in one of the previous interviews, one of the publishing experts said that there is a huge importance of visual language versus just declaring what's going on in the book, because this is when you get, script options from Netflix or something like that, because your visual language is so, so important.
Yeah.
So thinking about this, how do you think speakers can find more paid, or not necessarily paid, speaking gigs, you know, in the modern world? Because what I noticed when I entered to the speakers community overall, like, groups and connections and stuff like that, they're quite overcrowded. There are plenty of people who want to be speakers nowadays, especially as you said, we are very well connected all across the world. And well, English is universal language nowadays. So more or less people speak English in many different countries. So I think the competition to get on stages is now much, much more. So what are your best recommendation on how to get the speaking gigs?
Well, we have a speaker directory. Actually, we created that for Event Raptor clients to use to find speakers for their events. And funnily enough, we have about 1,200 speakers in our speaker directory at the moment. And funnily enough, we had people saying to us, gosh, I'm in your speaker directory and somebody has reached out to me, and they're not an Event Raptor client, but they've got a podcast, and they've asked me if I will be on their podcast. What do you think? And we said, that's absolutely wonderful. And if you think that's a good fit for you and you've got the opportunity to be on a podcast, go do it. That's wonderful. Being visible, being seen, people will get to hear you. They will be able to then recommend you. They hear you on a particular podcast. They will then ask if you would like to speak on their particular stage. Now, you're right that things like paid speaking gigs, they are out there. Of course, they are out there, and there are opportunities for people to do that. But also, it's almost like a reverse now. When you speak about what it is you do, give people the opportunity to know how to continue the conversation with you, and what that might be like to work with you. There you are, I got my words out in the end. So, for example, we've had people that have spoken at our events, and I'll go back to the very first Own Your Stage. So many of our attendees reached out to speakers and said, what is it like to work with you? I understand you mentioned you do a course. How do I become part of your course? I understand that you run a networking meeting. What's it like to join your networking meeting or your podcasting course or whatever it may be? So have something that you can say to people so they know how they can continue the conversation and a potential relationship with you. So that's a means of being able to earn your money. Plenty of people have honed the ability to sell from the stage. And, virtual events, you can make thousands of dollars from running a virtual event. That's something that we actually teach people, but that's certainly something that you can do. So the traditional I'm being paid to speak way still exists, but there are many, many more ways for you to earn an income by being a speaker, but just not in the traditional being paid upfront way. And that's very exciting, I think.
Also, a question I have for you, which I think many of my readers asked, and that's why I always ask people who are in public speaking, how you prepare yourself for speaking events, because you have to be energized, and you mentioned that you are an introvert and you will have to recover after our conversation. So that means that you prepare yourself. So how do you do that?
For me personally, we're huge music lovers in our family. So I have my music. In actual fact, for example, if I'm going to write something, I will listen to classical music. If I listen to music with words, I go down the rabbit hole of singing along, and then I've wasted loads of time. So for me, there is getting in the zone, and for everybody it's different. Find what it is that you feel good about before you enter the virtual stage. So for me, it's listening to my music. That gives me, it comes a little bit down to NLP. When you think of anchoring, now anchoring is super important. Hearing the things that make you feel good. When we smell things, that familiarity. Listening to my upbeat, positive music and doing what I need to do to get ready. So, for example, if I'm going to be speaking on stage, I'm not going to be doing tons of stuff before. I have to be in the headspace of just, if you like, to simply be, to listen to music and to be able to press a button and feel good. So that's, for me personally, that's how I do it. For Steve, my husband, for example, it's being quiet. He just likes being quiet, to be in the zone. So what is it that makes you feel good when you show up? And for everybody, it'll be different.
I absolutely love this suggestion. So how people can connect with you?
You can find me at eventraptor.com, and that's where Steve and I hang out. And there you can find out more about our speaker directory. You can find out more about speaker connections, and we would love to invite people to come along to that at eventraptor.com. That's all you need to know to reach out and connect.
I love it. All the links will be in the description and on the screen somewhere. Thank you so much for this interview, Jennie.
Been wonderful. Thank you so much, Eve. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.